Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
When you look at how the NRA has factored into this and how Delta has said, you know what, we have this agreement where NRA members would get a discount, and even though we support Second Amendment rights, we're not now going to honor that discount. I mean, what's your impression of that?
Well, again, why did they come out and do that Saturday? I mean, they could have waited for a couple more days, maybe another week or so Casey could have pushed this bill through, but they decided to come out and do it Saturday. And that energized their base. Like you said, it energized those people that love our country, that love our Constitution, and love our Second Amendment right. And if they're going to pull the discount for NRA members, why not pull it for Planned Parenthood or some of the left organizations out there?
Well, wait. Where's the discount Delta? You're saying... where are you getting that? The Delta gives a discount to Planned Parenthood members.
Well, again, they're out there giving discounts to other liberal-leaning organizations. And it's my understanding
where
that
are you getting
that
I mean, look, I just need to be clear on this because you just indicated that they give discounts to Planned Parenthood members. I haven't seen that anywhere. I've seen allegations of that in right-wing blogs. I've been able to find no verification of that. We have people looking at that. Where are you getting that?
I was in a caucus meeting yesterday morning where the governor of Georgia was in there trying to convince us all, basically threatening us that if we don't pass this, that the things are going to be taken out of the budget, that if we don't do this, again, there's going to be consequences. And other senators, as well as myself, we looked it up on Google, and I apologize, I don't know the exact source right now, but my campaign can get it to you if you need to.
Okay, I mean, just to be clear, no, we have looked it up as well, and I mean that it doesn't appear after some digging that we've been able to determine that is actually factual, because you're indicating something that may not be true there.
Well, I believe very firmly that Delta is out there giving discounts to left-wing organizations as well. And if they're going to take it away from the NRA, why not take it away from the left-wing organizations?
But if you're making that argument, shouldn't you have your facts straight?
Again, it is correct. You're telling me that Delta is not giving away discounts to left-wing organizations? Is that what you're telling me?
No, you told me that it was Planned Parenthood. I'm just talking to you about what you said to me. Is that not a
left-wing organization?
No, but
that's
the point.
It's a very left-leaning organization.
They're not. There's no indication they are giving discounts to that organization. Is my point.
Again, let's, I guess, agree to disagree, because again, we can bring me back on, and I'll have the information for you about where they're giving away these discounts to left-leaning organizations that support Planned Parenthood.
Okay, we are going to follow up with you. I'm going to post on Twitter when you do provide us with some factual information that backs up your claim there.
It is Wednesday, the 28th of February of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Yes, we are the Vatican II of a virtual salon life. So welcome to our salon. You are in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Yes, that was Brianna Keelar, or is it Keeler? I like Keelar. Taking on one Georgia State Senator Michael Williams, who thought he could just come on the TV and lie with impunity. He thought he was on Fox News. Because on Fox News, that's baked into the cake. And I didn't expect the pushback. And you know what they say? You never tell a lie unless you have an answer for that lie. And that's the problem with lies, because once you start telling one, you start telling another, and you got to keep them all in order. All right. Well, Mueller is investigating Trump's financial dealings in any kind of businesses, like, the beauty pageant in Moscow, which was considerably before 2016. And, of course, part of the negotiations that Trump and his lawyers are trying to effect with Mueller in their conversation together is that, you don't talk about anything before the transition, okay? We were in the transition, and that's what you can talk to me about, but anything before that, no, that's all off limits. And Mueller goes, where did you learn American civics, buddy? In that crash course the FSB gives in the Kremlin? Mueller wouldn't say that. But if I was writing the story of Mueller, I would, I'd spice it up some. Why not? Okay, well, I think the, how shall I put it? The die is cast. And the chess pieces will be falling. Speaking of chess pieces, it is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. I considered going through the story, and we may do it probably Friday, of the lawyer who is defending the white nationalists in Charlottesville. What a piece of work this guy is. He calls himself pre-Vatican Jew. Okay, that's a nice way of putting it. That's a loving Catholic for you, which is one of the reasons why Vatican II came about. It was to be more embracing. The good word was spread far and wide in the vernacular, which in some quarters was considered anathema, like sacrilegious. You're going to burn in hell. Which made no sense, but, I guess if you're an authoritarian, you stick to your authoritarian tendencies. It took them a little while. It took them to the mid-'60s to finally say, we should take the locks off the books. The rest of the world is almost landing on the moon. Vatican is like, we got the Swiss guards. They look pretty good. Maybe we should take the locks off the books. And so they did. And the next thing you know, you had guitar masses. And according to this guy who's defending the Charlottesville white nationalists, a guitar mass is just a little too liberal of a practice, too far. It is the destruction of our society. The next thing you know, you've got covens of witches. Which is true because the Catholic religion adopted pagan practices to, spread their word far and wide. How else do you do it? Well, what's on the rest of the menu today? There's so much so much news and stories out there. Life on, I believe, is it Enceladus or Titan? One of the moons out there on Saturn. They're discovering signatures or seeing signatures of a specific methane gas that pretty much only comes from these little microscopic organisms that we have around lava vents and such, inhospitable regions in which no life form can exist except they do. So that's an interesting one. But you know what? We're going to get right back on here on Earth because you know what they say? It's either heaven or hell on Earth. And for tech bros, they are now facing tax hell. and for good reason. After the IRS wins access to cryptocurrency data showing unreported capital gains. So much for your little libertarian island where everybody can have their own berth at the marina. The NRA refuses to answer my US Senator Ron Wyden out here in Oregon. He's got questions about funding from Russia. The NRA says, nix day. Niet. And Here's a convenient little missing person story. The professor who told Papadopoulos that Russia had dirt on Hillary has vanished without a trace, leaving his fiancee and child behind. Ooh. This is almost like a John le Carré novel. After the break, we move to the chef's table to consider, this burns me up, the right-wing Supreme Court majority overturning the British Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and centuries of subsequent American Supreme Court rulings in declaring that asylum seekers, or any non-citizen, can be jailed indefinitely without a bail hearing. Do I hear echoes of internment camps in Montana again? Again? They're there. And finishing up, Big Corn tells Trump no deal after a White House oil and biofuels meeting. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Go to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. If you take a gander to the right, you'll notice the chat room link. That is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, who is our roaring girl, quite diligently throughout the day. And that is one way to connect with us. If you then take a gander to the leftish of the page there, you'll notice the contribute donate buttons, and that is how we pay our bills, and there's no joke about that. And we do appreciate your generosity because you're helping pay the bills, and we are unable to do it without you. I should note that we hate PayPal because, Thiel and all, just the whole thing. And Peter Thiel, he can go ahead. He can just build that stupid island that he thinks he could build and have libertarian marinas. Yeah. But we don't like PayPal. But it is evil necessity, isn't it? Okay. But we are trying to transition out, and we'll let everybody know ahead of time. And, it may not be soon. But we have been considering it for a considerable time. So truly then, all that stated, thank you for your generosity. And you can contact me at Justice Putnam on Twitter. And Tom takes care of our at Netroots Radio handle there. And also do follow the diary that I put up on Daily Co's with all show notes and links and a few other tidbits of delicious intensity. Okay, so there's so much news. This is like data overload, and I got to tell you, that's the plan. And one way to survive it is just allow it all to be sort of broken down in components and maybe spread the work around. No one analyst can take it all on. So, analyst, pontificator. Okay, how's that? That's a more truth in advertising. So on the rest of this menu, tech bros, cryptocurrency. I always thought cryptocurrency had it just reminded me of vampires, bloodsuckers coming out of a coffin. Cryptocurrency, I wish they had come up with another moniker, but maybe that was the reason why, is because it's hidden beneath the vampire's coffin. That's how they thought they could get away with it. But Martin Sismar from Raw Story breaks this down for us. Tech bros may find themselves in tax hell. because the IRS prevailed in a fight with the largest U.S. cryptocurrency exchange in a fight over user data. Okay, well, this has a double-edged sword, but for tech bros, you know, and I'm not saying all tech bros, but if you're defined as a tech bro, I think we know what that means. The revenuers had initially sought a database of all users, but ended up settling for data on about 13,000 who have made more than 20,000 in exchanges during a year between 2013 and 2015. The court order means data from those years will now be handed over to the IRS, which could then audit individuals who did not report income hidden in cryptocurrency. If you have concerns about this, we encourage you to seek legal advice from an attorney promptly, Coinbase wrote in an email sent to affected customers. Yikes. Well, according to court filings, the IRS started pushing after 3 people who were targeted in investigations and ultimately confessed to using digital currency in a bid to avoid scrutiny. At least one of them was a man who had used offshore accounts previously and then thought, well, cryptocurrencies are safe. Okay. You know, that's how they get you. It's a cookbook. I'm telling you, I'm on the tarmac and the lady's screaming, it's a cookbook, but I'm already going to go up the stairs. I mean, they told me there's going to be a really good in-flight meal. All right. Customers who say they paid their taxes include Bitcoin evangelist Andreas M. Antonopoulos, who says he saw it coming. Well, though it's not a household name, Coinbase is huge. In fact, it now has more clients than Charles Schwab. With a lot less signage, too, I bet. The Republicans' regressive new tax law eliminated a potential loophole in crypto capital gains, meaning Bitcoin investors will have to pay taxes going forward. And if they don't, the IRS seems poised to find out about it. So much for small government. This could have a huge effect, as The Verge reported. Coinbase boasts nearly 6 million customers, but according to a government filing, fewer than 1,000 U.S. citizens have reported cryptocurrency holdings on their taxes. You can self-report that mistake on your taxes in the documents provided. Okay. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's a misfortune. People think that they found the perfect loophole, and suddenly they found out it's really a noose. Next offering here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid me of this priest? Well, this next offering here is by Casey Michel out of Think Progress. Or is it Casey Michel? Michel? We will find out one day, won't we? Well, my US Senator Ron Wyden, here out in Oregon, issued a couple of letters to the NRA. Now, I understand the NRA is supposed to be the stalwart for Second Amendment rights. And they were, can just say, well, our money is just a form of expression, and that's our First Amendment rights. But it seems rather onerous where they're going to take the Fifth so that they don't implicate themselves in a crime, which in some cases might be considered bordering on treason. Something. Well, much of the focus on the NRA over the past week has remained, understandably, on the group's response to the recent school shooting in Parkland, Florida. Well, let me break in real quick. There was a mass killing and a shooting at a trans bar in Hollywood, California. Gee, I mean, you get to see it on KTLA, but nowhere else in the world. What the hell? Okay, back to this one. However, the NRA has also recently been forced to shed some light on another controversy, its suspected ties to Russia. Earlier this month, Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat of Oregon, issued a pair of letters demanding information on any financial links between the NRA and Moscow. I'll repeat that. Any financial links between the NRA and Moscow, or between the NRA and Russian nationals. The questions came after McClatchy reported, see, we still have investigative journalists. They haven't all had convenient heart attacks, polonium poisonings, lobby muggings, all convenient. Or they're very convenient. You know what I'm talking about. We'll get to that one later. McClatchy reported that the FBI was investigating whether Alexander Torshin, a Russian national who happens to be an NRA member, as well as the NRA's main liaison in Russia, had used the NRA to funnel funds to Donald Trump's presidential campaign. Torshin, described by the Daily Beast as a Putin ally, has a history of laundering Russian money in Europe, according to Spanish investigators. Yeah, you know, those are the ones that went after Latin American dictators and brought them to heel. Maybe they'll have to do it for us now, too. Let's just hope and pray. Instead of answering Wyden's request, however, the NRA issued a terse letter denying it received any funds from Moscow specifically designed to influence the election. As a long-standing policy to comply with federal election law, the NRA and its related entities do not accept funds from foreign persons or entities in connection with the United States elections. NRA Secretary and General Counsel John Fraser wrote to Wyden, okay. Fraser added that the FBI has not contacted the NRA and that McClatchy's coverage refers to an investigation of Mr. Torshin, not the NRA. Okay, well, the main liaison in Russia for the NRA, funneling money. Yeah, well, you know, I hate to tell you, but if you were the neighbor of somebody who knew this guy, they're going to be asking you questions. As it is, the letter is not an outright denial that the NRA has received funding from foreign entities like the Kremlin. It does not address the notorious trip NRA higher-ups took to Moscow in late 2015. Dana Rohrabacher went too. It does not mention the provenance of the $30 million the NRA funneled to Trump's campaign. Money that stemmed from an arm of the NRA that is not forced to disclose its donors. How very convenient. Citizens United. If anything, the letter does not actually answer any of the questions Wyden initially issued, which focused on any Russian funding wholesale, not just funding limited to the election. Nor does the letter mention Russians' attempts to use the NRA to lobby the White House. They always project and tip their hand, don't they? A Wyden aide told Think Progress that the senator is reviewing the NRA's response and considering additional follow-up questions. Like, how many times have the Russians lobbied the White House? Thank you. Wyden also issued a separate letter to the Treasury Department requesting documents pertaining to ties between Russia and the NRA, especially as it pertains to shell companies, or other illicit funding mechanisms suspected of being connected to these reported links. Now, of course, the Treasury Department hasn't yet replied to Wyden's request. They ought to team up. Look, you're getting after the cryptocurrency. There's a lot of Bitcoin with white nationalists and Putin. It's not just follow the rubles. I think it's follow the bitcoins too, apparently. Finishing up here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict. Wednesdays. It's Lent. Come on. But, I don't know. It could be Lent all year round if you want. Or it could not. This last article is by Brad Reed out of Raw Story. Now, remember, Papadopoulos ostensibly, supposedly is the catalyst for really the latest round of FISA warrants. And it wasn't the Steele dossier, though the Steele dossier corroborated existing evidence and investigative results that were ongoing. Now, this professor who was actually introduced, or if not outright introduced, was mentioned and appointment made so that Papadopoulos and this one Joseph Mifsud could meet, and that meeting was set up by Papadopoulos' girlfriend. It's like a John le Carré novel. So now remember, he's the one that told Papadopoulos that Russia had obtained leaked emails related to Hillary Clinton. Well, that guy's completely vanished, very conveniently. Like those convenient heart attacks. Well, and even his fiancee can't find him, and she's been with child. BuzzFeed News reporter Alberto Nardelli this month traveled to the Ukraine in search of Mifsud, who has not been seen since being caught up in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's probe about Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Well, now we're looking at a lot of Russian money laundering and a lot of Russian oligarchs who are caught up in Mueller's probe now, aren't we? When in Kiev, Nardelli encountered a 31-year-old woman named Anna, who claims that Mifsud is the father of her newborn child and who says she has not seen him for months. Okay. Interesting. Now, I have to say, Mifsud doesn't look like a svelte, 28 to 35-year-old fellow. So, I don't know. One of those, May, December type weddings. You know how it goes. Anna says she was 7 months pregnant and engaged to Mifsud when he became the focus of world media attention as the professor who told Papadopoulos that Russia had dirt on Clinton. Shortly thereafter, he dropped from sight. He also cut off all contact with Anna, including phone calls and WhatsApp messages. That silence is held, even 6 weeks after the daughter Anna says he fathered was born. Well, it might just be, if it's been for months, maybe he just I already got grown kids. I don't know. Maybe I don't, maybe I don't want to take on this responsibility. And he had an emotional and spiritual and an intellectual crisis because of all the compartmentalizing he had been doing in his life. It'll happen. Although Anna was first contacted by BuzzFeed last year, she only decided to speak out recently because she felt that her estranged fiancé had deceived her. Do you think? She also showed the publication a series of text messages sent by Mifsud boasting of having dinner with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. No hell hath no fury that a woman's kind. Intriguingly, the messages with Anna reveal that Mifsud also traveled to Saudi Arabia last spring at the exact time that Donald Trump traveled there for his first overseas trip, and where he did the sword dance with the orb. All right, let's go to our break now, and we'll all meet up back at the chef's table, and I'll give you the weather, and we'll finish up with the stories there. You're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Even Charles Dickens, England's masterful satirist of the Victorian upper class, could not have imagined elite rulers using a box of food as a gratuitous way to slap poor people. But Donald Trump and two of his slap-happy cabinet officials did imagine it, and then did it. They slipped a malicious punish the poor provision into the food stamp budget that Trump sent to Congress. Instead of providing a small monthly allowance for destitute families to spend on foods of their choice, the Trump provision would take away half of the allowance and substitute a monthly box of peanut butter, canned goods, and other packaged edibles chosen for them by the federal government. It's bureaucratic, patronizing, demeaning, and stupid. But Trump Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue hailed it as, quote, a bold initiative. Sonny has also disdainfully said that food stamp recipients are hooked on a culture of dependency, so maybe a diet of peanut butter will cure them of that. Then came Trump Budget Director Mick Mulvaney, a Tea Party extremist who bizarrely tried putting a luxury spin on the government-issued box of grub by comparing it to Blue Apron, an upscale grocery delivery system. But Mick, get a clue. Blue Apron patrons get to choose what's in their box, and it ain't peanut butter, it's locally sourced fresh food. As the leading Democrat opposing the Trump mob's food stamp gut job says in dismay, my God, these people are awful. Really just not nice people. This is Jim Hightower saying, less nice is their real intention to kill the food stamp program entirely. Trump's budget calls for slashing 30% of the funding this year. As watchdogs at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities put it, that's the real battle. The food box silliness is a distraction to let them pull off the big theft. To help stop them, go to cbpp.org. cbpp.org.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Walking in New York City is almost a competitive sport.
Hey! I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
And people in cities really do walk faster than their country counterparts, 2.8 feet per second faster, according to a worldwide study in the 1970s. But that speedier pace of life extends to other aspects of city living, too.
There's more inventions per capita in large cities, or more mobile telephony usage in larger cities.
Lev Varsna, an information theorist at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He says you might expect Twitter use to increase in larger cities, too. But after analyzing 2.5 million tweets from 50 U.S. cities, his team concluded the opposite is true. There's actually less tweeting per capita as population rises. But those who do tweet in big cities are more prolific, tweeting more often on average than their small-town counterparts.
And so what we discovered is that there's kind of a core of people that we call town tweeters that seem to emerge And those people are actually tweeting a lot, and then everyone else is not tweeting very much in large cities. And so those, what we call town tweeters, are essentially serving as an information broadcast infrastructure.
Their analysis is in the journal Sage Open. Of course, the faster pace of life in big cities also means that these days, lots of people text and tweet while they're walking. In a 2018 remake of Midnight Cowboy, maybe a more accurate line for Ratso Rizzo would be, "Hey, I'm tweeting here." Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
Welcome to 60-Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. There is no single organization in the world that has the power to force countries to settle conflicts peacefully. There are some organizations that help countries reach agreements without going to war. The most important worldwide organization is the United Nations. A treaty signed in 1945, after World War II, created the United Nations. The purposes of the United Nations, according to its charter, are to maintain international peace and security, develop friendly relations among nations, cooperate in solving international economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian problems, and promote respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. Most nations of the world are members of the United Nations. That's all for today's podcast, 60-Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour special report recorded on Tuesday, February 27th, 2018. I'm Mark Boulanger. Unemployment worldwide has stabilized in the past 2 years, but a UN agency is concerned about the quality of the jobs being produced. The UN's International Labour Organization, the ILO, reports that global unemployment in 2017 was 5.6%. That means 192 million people who were looking for jobs could not find employment. Meanwhile, 1.4 billion of the world's workforce was engaged in vulnerable employment with little job security. 40% of workers in the world, some 114 million, will continue working in extreme poverty. The ILO's employment report for 2018 was presented by two of the organization's economists.
Economic growth has picked up in many parts of the world and should remain fairly stable over the next couple of years. But this will translate only partially into better labor market prospects. On the upside, for the first time in 3 years, the global unemployment rate is set to fall slightly, to 5.5% in 2018.
In developed countries in particular, the unemployment rate is projected to return to levels seen before the economic crisis. However, with more people looking for jobs, the number of unemployed will remain high in 2018, at around 192 million people globally, with increases in emerging and developing countries.
Unemployment figures, though, are not enough to gauge the true extent of labor market challenges. It is the quality of jobs being created that remains the most pressing issue worldwide. Progress in reducing vulnerable employment has stalled since 2012.
The ILO estimates that in 2017, more than 40% of workers were in vulnerable forms of employment. This means a total of 1.4 billion workers globally.
By 2019, there could be an additional 35 million people in vulnerable employment. And although there are fewer workers living in poverty, especially in emerging countries, the rate of decline in these numbers is slowing. Improving the situation of women in the world of work remains another daunting challenge. Women are more likely to be unemployed, and when they are employed, they tend to work more often in low-quality jobs in vulnerable conditions. This also means that women often earn much less than men.
Altogether, these figures call for strong, targeted policy efforts to improve the quality of work and ensure that the gains of economic growth are shared equally. This is becoming increasingly important as the global world of work is undergoing significant changes.
More and more people are leaving agriculture and manufacturing for jobs in the service sector. Looking ahead, the projected shifts to the service sector could create complex pressures on job quality. In fact, many jobs in the service sector are either informal or vulnerable, especially in emerging and developing countries.
The ILO report points out that the employment situation varies significantly around the world. The highest rate of unemployment was recorded in Northern Africa with 11.7%, a result of high rates of joblessness amongst young people and women. Southern Africa has a lower rate, 7.2%, but almost 3 out of 4 workers in the region are in vulnerable employment, while more than 1 in 3 workers are living in conditions of extreme poverty. In Latin America, the unemployment rate is predicted to be 7.7% in the next year. In the Asia-Pacific area, employment rates are growing quickly. But still, vulnerable employment in the region affects almost half of all workers, more than 900 million. In Europe, better-than-expected economic activity has resulted in a decrease in unemployment to 8.5%, the lowest rate since the global crisis of 2008, but still quite high. And that's it. International labor news you can use. Radio Labor's newscasts are available on its website, Facebook, iTunes, union websites, and community radio stations. Follow us on Twitter @Radio Labor. I'm Mark Boulanger. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
Thank you for accompanying us back to the chef's table here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, and a special Wednesday it is. Well. Now, I should mention that podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, as well as podcasts of the Justice Department Musique Sans Frontières, can be had by way of Spreaker. And I put up the appropriate links. And if you ever go to my diaries that I put up with the show notes and links, the links are right there. So there you go. And you can also find it on iTunes. You know what? Don't hold me to that. I still got to see if I'm on the registry. Probably not. There's something I got to do. I guess I need some administrative help. But regardless, tune in. I know it's there. Stitcher, we're there. So you can get us that way and, download our podcasts or just take a listen. All right, so we're at the chef's table, so I'll give you a little palate cleanser, which is always weather from around the world. And we begin along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, to be specific. And it is currently 32. Actually, I just checked my little digital weather station that unfortunately doesn't load up to Weather Underground, but it's still nice. And it says that it's actually 28, and we are in a winter weather advisory. We are having a wintry mix, and we're having more of the wintry part of that mix right now because snow is falling. And the city was out bright and early this morning, laying down the cinder because get ahead of it. Okay, so looks like we're looking at about almost half an inch of snow, I think. Rain and snow. So I guess that means that water is water, and when it melts, it'll just decrease in volume. But it looks like it's piling up. And let's see. So snow showers currently, winds are out of the northeast, fairly negligible because and as I watch the flakes flutter down, there seems to be not a lick of wind. As we like to say out here in Oregon, Okay. So that will be occurring. That will be occurring all day. We're going to have supposedly a high of 49. We'll see about that. And ostensibly a low tonight of 37. With more rain and snow tonight, I think it's going to be more like 28 where I live, with more snow. And winds expected, we're going to get a little bit of sailing weather, if one needed it, out of the south-southwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. So conditions right now, barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.05 inches. Visibility, they say 9 miles. I'm looking out, and I'm thinking it's more around 4 where I'm at. And humidity is 81%. Okay. Now, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. And these people planted these weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people live around the world. I like it. Yeah, I was actually looking at some weather stations that can become part of the weather underground. But I don't know. Maybe we'll need an education grant from some philanthropic organization somewhere to do that. London is 29 degrees and mostly cloudy. Paris, France is 30 degrees and sunny, and they are under a winter weather advisory as well for snow. Rome is 42 and partly cloudy, and they are under the same, but with wind. Kiev is 13 degrees and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 43 and cloudy, and good thing. When it's cloudy, it's hard for the drones to fly. And Hong Kong, 65 and clear. Tokyo is 50 degrees with rain and a weather advisory with rain and lightning. Sydney, Australia is still in summer, and they're experiencing 73 degrees with showers in the vicinity. San Francisco, California is 45 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York is 47 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny as hell. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. They planted them somewhere on their property, and these people live around the world. Now that we're here comfortable at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, this is a bit of a deep dive, so why don't we just dive right into it. Stephen Rosenfeld from Alternet broke this down for us. The U.S. Supreme Court has issued what may become one of the most consequential anti-immigrant rulings in the Trump era, declaring that asylum seekers, non-citizens, are not entitled to bail hearings and can languish in jail for years. The majority's ruling in Jennings v. Rodriguez, written by Justice Samuel Alito, reverses and remands a ruling by the California-based Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals which said a non-citizen could not be held for longer than 6 months without a bail hearing. Habeas corpus. The non-citizen issue, or the non-citizens at issue, are asylum seekers, persons who have finished serving a sentence of confinement for a crime, or individuals who, while lacking a clear entitlement to enter the U.S., claim to meet the criteria for admission. Now, this is Alito summarizing the case here. The court's majority concluded that several immigration statutes do not give detained aliens the right to periodic bond hearings during the course of their detention. The Ninth Circuit misapplied the canon of constitutional avoidance in holding otherwise. You know, I'm just going to jump the gun here. This goes against everything that we hold dear and true about our Constitution. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. You are under constitutional guarantee of the United States. It ain't just manifest destiny. It is an idea. And when you are set on this soil, no matter what, if you're a tourist and you're going to the Grand Canyon, and you drop your wallet down the Grand Canyon, you go down there, and they say, oh, you're digging for archaeological artifacts. And you say, no, I'm getting my wallet. They say, okay, well, we'll just have to detain you indefinitely because you are not a citizen. I mean, where are we going with this, Sam? In late 2017, federal immigration authorities held approximately 40,000 asylum seekers in various detention centers around the country. Human Rights First had reported asylum seekers are a subset of the estimated 11 million visa-less immigrants in the U.S. I like that, visa-less. Alito's conclusion was slammed in a dissent from the court's more liberal justices, you mean the moderate ones, as turning a blinding eye to American legal history, from its founding documents to previous Supreme Court rulings dating to the 19th century. Yep. So, Justice Stephen Breyer noted that the majority's conclusion was at odds with the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Magna Carta, which influenced those founding documents and then centuries of subsequent American Supreme Court rulings. Precedent. We don't need no stinking court precedent. First, as I have said, respondents in this case are members of three special classes of non-citizens. And this is Breyer explaining here. The most important of whom, 1, arrive at our border seeking asylum, or 2, have committed crimes but have finished serving their sentences of imprisonment. We also consider those who, 3, arrive at our borders believing they are entitled to enter the United States for reasons other than seeking asylum, but lack a clear entitlement to enter. The country's founding documents were based on enshrining the right to preserve liberty and obtain one's day in court, concepts the conservative majority just stepped on. Breyer's dissent, which Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Santa Sotomayor signed, and Justice Elena Kagan recused herself because when you follow like ethics on this court in this era, because is Gorsuch going to recuse himself? Has he? No. None of the conservative majority recuses themselves from any of these hearings, even when they have lunch and give speeches and get paid for it, to people who are appearing before the court. Breyer continued in his dissent, along with the signatories mentioned here. The Fifth Amendment says that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. An alien is a person. To hold him without bail is to deprive him of bodily liberty. And where there is no bail proceeding, there has been no bail-related process at all. The Due Process Clause, itself reflecting the language of the Magna Carta, prevents arbitrary detention. Indeed, freedom from bodily restraint has always been at the core of the liberty protected by the Due Process Clause from arbitrary governmental action. In plainer language, Breyer summed up by saying what the court's majority was doing was unconstitutional, and that the legal statutes they cited to build their arguments should have been overruled as such, not affirmed. The upshot is the following, he continued. The Constitution's language, its basic purposes, the relevant history, our tradition, and many of the relevant cases point in the same interpretive direction. They tell us that an interpretation of the statute before us that would deny bail proceedings where detention is prolonged would likely mean the statute violates the Constitution. Well, everybody knows the Constitution is nothing but a goddamn piece of paper. Now watch me take a mulligan on this drive. Breyer then continued, that was my joke about Bush, GW, and Trump, and basically the right-wing attitude about the rule of law. Breyer continued, the bail questions before us are technical, but at heart they are simple. We need only recall the words of the Declaration of Independence, in particular, its insistence that all men and women have certain unalienable rights, and that among them is the right to liberty. We need merely remember that the Constitution's Due Process Clause protects each person's liberty from arbitrary deprivation. And we need just to keep in mind the fact that since Blackstone's time, and long before, liberty has included the right of a confined person to seek release on bail. It is neither technical nor unusually difficult to read the words of these statutes as consistent with this basic right. I would find it far more difficult, indeed I find it alarming, to believe that Congress wrote these statutory words in order to put thousands of individuals at risk of lengthy confinement all within the United States, but all without hope of bail. And I guess I would just say, internment camp much? The last point, that asylum seekers now face the prospect of lengthy confinement without any hope of bail, will now empower Trump and the Trump administration's aggressive anti-immigration policy. This is a reporter now. International human rights groups quickly criticized the ruling, you would think. Okay, so Eleanor Acer of Human Rights First gave quite a bit of feedback on this. Today's ruling is particularly alarming given the policies of the Trump administration. On January 25th, Trump signed an executive order directing the DHS to construct and operate immigration detention facilities and hold immigrants there for the duration of their immigration court proceedings. Human Rights First report found that in the 8 months since Trump signed his January 25th executive order calling for increased immigration detention, asylum seekers are largely refused parole, leaving many locked up in immigration detention facilities for months or longer. The 2017 report noted that DHS's proposed budget sought $2.7 billion to fund an average daily level of 51,379 detention beds for fiscal year 2018, making it clear that these policies are aimed at penalizing those who seek protection in the United States and attempting to deter others from doing the same. Give me your hungry, your destitute, so I can incarcerate them indefinitely without bail. Make America great again. Finishing up here at the chef's table is an article out of Reuters, reporting by Jarrett Renshaw and writing by Richard Valdeminis. Meeting between Donald Trump and senators representing both the oil and corn industries failed to yield an agreement on how best to lower the cost of United States biofuels policy to refiners. I wonder what would happen if you put big oil and big corn together in a room. No deal made. Charles Grassley of Iowa, a key participant in the talks, representing corn growers. Yeah, let's get a monoculture and another industry that's trying to get, microscopic bubbles of gas out of petrified rock. Well, rock is petrified by its nature, but you know what I mean. Trump had called the meeting amid rising concern in the White House over the current state of the U.S. Renewable Fuel Standard, a law requiring refiners to mix biofuels, such as corn-based ethanol, into their fuel. Why do we need to do that? Put lead in it. The decade-old policy intended to help farmers and reduce U.S. petroleum imports has divided two of Trump's most important constituencies. A refining company in the key electoral state of Pennsylvania last month blamed the regulation for his bankruptcy. The White House had confirmed the meeting but did not immediately comment after it. After it had concluded, representatives and for the other senators and the agencies also did not immediately comment. Alrighty. Well, Reuters reported that other factors may also have played a role in the bankruptcy of the Philadelphia company, including the withdrawal of more than $590 million in dividend-style payments from the company by its investor owners. Okay. You know what they like to do. Privatize the gains, socialize the liabilities. When they're grifters, I'm sorry, we lost all this money, but you got to pay. Well, this gets us to the end of our broadcast period. We better get out of here. So thank you for sticking with us today, and we'll visit with you tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. And stay tuned to more breaking news throughout the day on Netroots Radio. And we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.